Hey, it's Eliana with Brands Are Alive, and in this video, I want to take you one step deeper into the topic of branding with your full self-expression. So I get this question a lot, the question of how do I figure out what is my brand like essence? How do I know what's my vibe? How do I figure out what it is that, that thing that makes the brand different, that makes it unique, that makes it basically a full self-expression? And I want to explain this in the context of branding first. And when it comes to branding, branding is mostly a mental exercise. You can figure out a brand's persona, identity, position, and all these things with the mind. I like to think of branding or the brand as the being and marketing as the doing. So the brand is the identity and the persona of the company. It's what this is all about, the emotions, the perception, and all of that. And then marketing is the actions that further solidify this being, right? But also the being informs the actions. So the brand informs the marketing, and then the marketing actions further fortify this brand image. But at the core of it, what's missing from this paradigm is that we don't have a point of reference for the brand. Like, where does the brand originate from? We don't talk about this. And this is where my life's work has been to explain that there is another layer that we don't look at, and that is the essence. And the essence, in simple terms, is being as close as possible to your authentic nature, right? It's who is the being that's driving all of this work, and what are the characteristics of this being that informs the kind of brand. And instead of looking at the outer world and trying to figure out what the market wants, instead looking within, figuring out what do I want. Because when you're creating a brand based on what you think the market wants, first of all, you have no way of getting it right. Of course, you can do a whole bunch of market research, and of course, you're always going to get the right answer. Data can give you the right answer any way you want to cut it. But that doesn't matter, because if your only point of reference is what do I think the market wants, well, what happens if the market changes their mind, or you change your mind, or you want to talk to a different kind of customer or a different kind of audience? You're going to be lost. You're going to be lost. And this is why most brands are honestly lost, even though they're clear on who they're supposed to be on paper. But it's not really derived from the essence of the founder or the visionary, because there is no vision. And so, we all know what happens to those. So how do you figure out this authentic self-expression? How do you figure out what is it that makes your brand different and unique? And how do you find that voice? The first step is to give up on wanting to stand out and be heard and be seen. I can tell you right away that the need to be seen and the need to be noticed as different, or the need for the brand to be different, is the shortest way to not being authentic and not being different, because everybody else is trying to do that. Instead, what I would recommend is get out of your mind, because branding is a mental exercise, but figuring out your essence is not a mental exercise. It's actually an experience. Of course, you can use the mind to derive bits and pieces about the essence and then incorporate them into the brand, but you're not going to understand it with your mind. You can only understand it through experience. So how do you figure out that experience? How do you go through the experience, and how do you clarify that? Well, what is the authentic nature? What is our authentic nature? It's love. And even if you don't see it, you can easily try and, if you want to use logic, just work your way back to who were you as a kid, as a child, before the world changed you, or before you changed you, right? Before you changed yourself and you had to figure out what are some survival mechanisms that can help you, be safe. Well, all you did is you followed your heart. All you did is you were looking for things to love and loving things and being in a state of love. Whether it was joy, whether it was playfulness, whether it was bliss, whatever it was all one variation or another of love. So this whole self-expression, this whole essence thing, is about recovering the inner child. Recovering the inner child is really truly the path to your fullest self-expression. And it's not about trying to remember what you were like as a kid. I know I mentioned that for those of you who can't, see the connection, but it really isn't even about that, because who you were as a child isn't really your inner child. Your inner child is not exactly the kid that you were years ago. The inner child is not emotionally immature, it's not unwise, it's actually wise, it's actually ancient, it's pretty old. And the inner child is, like I said, is the closest to the authentic self-expression of love. And outside of just basic survival needs, the only thing it cares about is, does it make me feel alive? Does it excite me? Is it, so it's all driven by these emotions of playfulness, curiosity, fun, joy, and bliss. And it's not until later that we learn to calculate, right? We learn to think, this gets me this, and this gets me in trouble, and this will get me that, and and caring about, our position in the world and that sort of thing. So really, this whole thing is about following a process of choosing love over fear. And it is, as much as it's a question of being, there's a lot of doing in it. In the same way that, with branding and marketing, there's a cycle between these two. In the same way, your essence and your choices, your daily choices, are interconnected. Who you be is what you do, and what you do is who you be. Like, who you are is a collection of the choices that you make and the actions that you take. And every time you make the choice to reach out for the things that make you feel alive in your day-to-day, every time you choose to do the thing that you love despite the fear, every time you choose to not let fear stop you from being playful and from doing the things that excite you, you are choosing a fuller self-expression. And the more you do that, the more courage you develop and the bolder you get in your self-expression. So in the beginning, it may look like, I just want to allow myself to have a little bit of fun every once in a while, or I'm going to allow myself to do a little bit of what I love with what I do. And before you know it, you're going to start doing stuff that you never thought was possible for you. I'll give you guys an example. When I realized that I wanted to incorporate sacred plant medicine in my practice in marketing and business, of course, my first thought was, this is going to be so strange, and a lot of people are not going to understand it. There's going to be a lot of judgment. But I didn't let that stop me from bringing it into my work and using it with my clients, because I know and I believe 100% in its effectiveness based on my own experience and experience of the few friends that I had referred to, to facilitators and shamans that we work with, and seen the results. And I was convinced that I have to incorporate this no matter what. And I didn't give a shit what the impact was going to be in my life, and whether people are going to start, like my old connections are going to be disappointed, or they're going to judge me or whatever. I didn't care about any of that, right? But the more I do these things, the clearer it becomes. The voice, the inner voice, becomes clearer. And the thing about this is, it's not enough to just not do the things that drag you down. It's not enough to say yes to the things that excite you. You have to be honest with yourself. So you have to develop this kind of sense of, anytime you get an inspired thought or inspired idea or action and you feel excitement, if you feel that your mind is entering the chat and is like trying to talk you out of it, you have to make a decision to go for it and do it. And never, basically, just be on the lookout for ways that fear is telling you to suppress yourself. Because anytime you say no, because you can't logic the fuck out of something and you don't know how it fits in business, and you're like, oh my God, like that's not connected to my business. This idea sounds so cool. Let's say, for example, you have an idea for a campaign. It would be really fun and exciting and everything, but then your mind talks you out of it and is like, nah, don't do that. That's too much, You'll be judged for it, or you'll lose, clients and customers over it because it's so unprofessional or whatever. That's when you have to do it. You have to do it because that's part of your fuller self-expression. And the key to this is not only to do it, but to be unapologetic about it. This is so important, because a lot of people out there will try and do something, but then they're kind of like half-assing it. And that's the worst thing you can do. You cannot have a watered down version of yourself. You might as well just not do it, okay? But anytime you water yourself down, or you like half do it and you're kind of like bargaining with the universe, it's a really bad idea. Do not do that. Either be it or don't, but you have to go all out. So in conclusion, you have to first get in the state of being in love with life, really reaching out for the things that excite you, doing more of what sparks your curiosity, what inspires you, what makes you feel alive on a day-to-day, not trying to necessarily always connect it to profit, just doing it because it gives you that certain feeling of being in alignment with your authentic nature of love, playfulness, curiosity, and having a great time. And while at the same time, of course, doing the part, right, doing the work, this is not a substitute to the doing, but you have to listen in and be that in that state. And then only after you've been in that state, then you can ask yourself the typical branding questions, such as, who do I want to be to them? How do I want to be known? How do I want them to perceive me? And all of that good stuff. So again, this is Aliana from Brands Are Alive. We do exactly this. We help you kind of step into that full essence and that self-expression and bring it to everything you create, your brand, your business, and everything that you do, all of your marketing, so that you can have a brand that reflects it, that reflects the full expression of who you really are, and a business that makes you feel alive. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.